Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, go ahead.
I want to set people straight on these issues, right? Because there's a lot of misinformation going on around there.
Yes.
And you're hearing one side. You're hearing the government and and in some cases in Barbados, the government controlled media not telling the truth. I remember on Thursday, a member of staff from CBC called me and said they wanted an interview because the Prime Minister had made some remarks about me. I said, well, this strike was ongoing for more than a week, and you have not reported on it at all until the Prime Minister abused me at the meeting. So you want them, and I have nothing to say to you. You know, you people are.
I know how it is. Your phone is going because you're the man of the hour right now, man of the people, and so everybody's calling you. I understand that. But that, Mr. Senator Franklyn, is one of the reasons I wanted you to be on, because I see the comments on Facebook, and that narrative seemed to be people are trying to push that narrative, that the strike is really about you and not about the not about the nurses. There are no issues with the nurses.
I normally do not listen to anything the Prime Minister has to say because it's usually rubbish. And people will come to me and said, or send me clips from the press conference. And one of the things she said was, that it's political. And that if I want to get involved in politics, I should get a constituency and run. Well, the Prime Minister knows, and if she would be honest with herself, the Prime Minister will tell you that last year, September, she offered me to run in St. Thomas. She was going to take up Cynthia Ford and put me to run. I refused. I said, I'm not interested in politics. And this is not the first time I'm saying that. I said it in the campaign in the St. George by-election, because what happened, when I refused her, she then got 20 more to run, because I said she had some hell bent that she must get the unions under control, and she wanted to control mine. So that is rubbish. That's absolute rubbish. When I refused, she got Cynthia. She got she didn't have to take up Cynthia Ford. She then took up Glenn Clark in St. George to make Tony Moore the MP up there. So that tells you, if I wanted to be in the House of Assembly, I would have been in the House of Assembly since last year. But that is not my focus. My focus is representing the workers, and because nobody else is doing it in Barbados. You have a lot of unions, but they are not living up to what is expected of them. They like to go to meetings with the Prime Minister, sit down and have fancy speeches. And after that, nothing happens. Like this one with the nurse, then they invited the Nursing Association, Barbados Nurses Association, to come to a meeting to discuss proposal that I had put forward. But that is so ludicrous, it isn't funny. But they want to negotiate with people who are compliant, people who are doing their bidding. I don't do anybody's bidding but the people who I represent. Right. So that nonsense about being about me, that they're trying to make it about me. It's not about me. I have not gone anywhere and invited a single nurse to join Unity Workers Union. All of them have joined this organization because they have seen me operate, and they want representation that they do not have, or they were not getting for years. Right. That's all about. I can assure you, I have not gone to a single nurse. As a matter of fact, I do not market. I do not market. So whoever joins the union because of my reputation. Nothing more.
Mr. I want to confirm that, because I know of a teacher who said to me after she saw what you're doing, she said, well, I'm going to switch and I'm going to that union. And she tried to find you on Facebook and all about the place, and a website and so I know that it doesn't exist, in terms of that space. It's not that you're marketing. So you've kind of put that out the way, that it's not politics. you're saying to me, and you're saying it's not about you. So what is it really about, Mr. Senator Franklyn? If it's not about you and it's not about politics, why would you, what is it really about?
Look, this strike started when the government tried to enforce these mandates to get people vaccinated. Okay, they wanted people vaccinated, and in order to persuade people to get vaccinated, they came up with this policy that if you are not vaccinated, you have to be swabbed every Monday. They put it in a directive, and the directive was published actually, but then people then couldn't go to the doctor's place because they were not vaccinated, and the doctors cry out because they were not getting any money. So they pulled back that directive, and they're doing it now on the slide. On the Thursday, I can't remember the actual date of it now, but the chief medical officer was heard on radio, a press conference with one of the Prime Minister's sellouts, David Ellis. He said the safe zones are up and running, and they're getting
I remember that.
They're getting good cooperation from the geriatric hospital, the psychiatric hospital, and the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. The next day, the manager of the hospital, acting manager of the geriatric hospital, wrote a memorandum and put it on the board, directing people to go to get these tests every Monday because the directives were in place. And that, so we said, look, no, this is impossible. But we had said to the Director General of the Public Service, she's the person responsible for industrial relations in the public service, that if they try to enforce these mandates on the workers without any discussion or approval from this union, we will take immediate strike action. So when we saw that, we wrote to them and we said, not only will we be taking strike action on these mandates, but we will also then be striking over the other issues that we have been negotiating for, as far as I'm concerned, before COVID. Because I met with the Director General, and at those meetings, Mr. DePisa, he was at those meetings. Mind you, when he got the Prime Minister to abuse me, he forgot that he was at those meetings. So he's saying that we didn't go through any protocols, we didn't go through anything. But that is an absolute lie. He was present at those meetings and he participated in those meetings. But no, he forgot because he was sitting there to the Prime Minister and he is saying what the Prime Minister wants him to say. All right? Let me tell you something. I have nothing further ever to say to that man again, because you cannot sit in front of the camera and lie to Barbados or to the world, because it was all over the internet, saying things about me that he knows to be untrue. He was in those meetings with me, at least 3 of them. And then when COVID came about, we started meeting on Zoom with the Director General, and we were all pushing nursing issues. He was pushing the issues on behalf of the Barbados Nurses Association because they have no negotiating capabilities. They don't know what to do, so they bring him in to negotiate for them. I don't know who told him that he can negotiate, but somehow they believe that. And he comes into the meetings on their behalf.
Right.
And yet still he didn't remember any of these things. He goes on the press conference and gave the impression that nothing like that happened. He was there in the chair. Now, let me tell you some of the things that we were talking about.
Yes.
These nurses sometimes in Barbados are not paid for extended periods of time. And we were trying to get them to pay nurses when the pay is due. Sometimes 5.
Let's clarify that, sir, because for a lot of us like myself, it's news. We don't know these things. So you're saying nurses in Barbados have not been, sometimes they're not paid for extended. You mean like 2 months or 3 months? What are we talking?
Or 5 months.
Wow.
And I in one of my Zoom meetings, I'll tell you this story. It was heart-wrenching. I felt like crying when I heard it. This nurse came into the meeting and she said, for months she was not paid. She's working on a ward. And she said, when some person died on the ward, she wouldn't report it to the kitchen so that when the food comes, she would get something to eat.
Oh my gosh.
That is how bad it is.
In Barbados here.
In Barbados, she said when a person dies on the ward, she will not report the death to the kitchen, so the kitchen will still send that patient's food, so she will get something to eat because she wasn't paid. When I heard that, my stomach turned. And this is what nurses are struggling through in Barbados, you know. And the authorities talking about political? That's just one. We have another instance where nurses at one institution get hazard allowance.
Mm-hmm.
But the people who actually work with the patients when they come off the street aren't getting this hazard allowance. So we said that is unfair because you have them at the hospital getting hazard allowance, but they are tested before they go up to the nurses. When you walk into a polyclinic, a guy might come with a broken arm, but he might got COVID too. So those nurses at the polyclinics are more in danger and more hazardous situation than the nurses at the hospital who know what they're dealing with. Then now you're dealing with people who could potentially have COVID, but we're asking for PPE. They give nurses 5 masks for a week, when one mask is only supposed to last for 4 hours.
You're telling, right? So, you mean 5 masks for 1 week?
For 1 week.
That can't be hygienic.
That is happening in Barbados. No, the nurses have to go and buy their own because they know better. So nurses have to go and provide supplies to subsidize the government. And it isn't only for them all personal use because they have to buy sanitizers to clean up the place because the government is not providing sanitizers. I went to a clinic one day and I saw the doctors give somebody money, tell them go to this thing and buy some bleach because the place needed cleaning. And the
in Barbados?
Yes, in Barbados. Nurses tell me that they are working in the clinic and these Johnny Postles, mice, and cockroaches run across their desks. Places are filthy.
I don't think the average Barbadian understands this, Senator Franklyn. I don't think so. And you know, I'm gonna just pause to remind people that this is not a show. We're talking about people's lives here, guys. And as you know, the government has cut the nurses' salary, which we're going to talk about a little later. But I'm mentioning it at this moment because I want you to really dig deep in from your bank accounts, whatever. We're going to support these nurses. They are part of us. When you hear this story, guys, when you hear what these nurses are going through, we will not let them be victimized twice. We will not allow them to be victimized twice. So I pause for us because this is important here. This is something that you can do practically. Okay, so can you continue, Senator Franklyn?
Okay. Nurses then sometimes they have to, at the geriatric hospital, it's an old people's home. Sometimes nurses have to go downtown by SY Adam and buy washcloths to bathe patients out their own money because they don't have. You give them 3 gloves, but each patient has to be bathed with another glove. You can't bathe everybody with the same. You get 3 gloves and you got 15 patients to bathe. This is kind of things that nurses go through. Nurses say, this has to stop. They're speaking out, and because they're speaking out, you want to kill them. You imagine bathing some old person with a pair of gloves, and then you got to go and wash off those gloves and go and bathe somebody else. They're even telling us that something called an NG chew, where you feed people through their nose. And you have to go, and those tubes are one-use things. But you have to go and clean them, sanitize them, and put them back again because they're not providing even them. Now the patient can't, and you have to put their food in through their noses. Now, cut there. This is Barbados we're talking about, you know. So this is complain that they have to do things like that. People have to go and buy, but people who have prostate problems and you have to get the bag to collect the urine.
Right.
They're going to buy them.
The nurses.
The nurses
so you're telling me the nurses they're buying masks, they're buying sanitizer, The nurses are buying out of their own pockets bleach to clean the facility, the hospital, the rooms, their offices, you know, and then they are buying these bags that the patient needs, and they're buying washcloth to bathe the patients.
Yes, so they're complaining about that. You wouldn't complain about that too if you were a nurse and by business got to go through that kind of crap. You know, but okay, let me that listen here, so stomach churning. Let me go on to the other things. Nurses are appointed in the public service, they are appointed on probation.
Mm-hmm.
After 6 months or 12 months, you are supposed to be confirming your appointment if you are medically fit.
Yes.
When you get those appointment letters, then National Insurance would refund you the excess that you pay, because if you are a temporary officer, you pay more National Insurance, or if you're temporary or working in the private sector, you pay more National Insurance than a permanently appointed public officer. The reason for that is that public officers are not supposed to go on what they call it, sick leave, because they are paid for their sick leave by the government. That existed before the National Insurance, so they never have to pay for that portion of the National Insurance, or they don't pay for unemployment because a permanent employee is not supposed to go unemployed.
Right.
So they don't. So their National Insurance contributions are somewhat reduced. You have some people who have been appointed on a probation for 6 months or a year, and 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, they haven't gotten the letter to confirm the appointments. So you are paying excess National Insurance. One lady told me a couple of weeks ago that she got back $1,500. That's over 2 years, but she was waiting for a letter for 5 years. So that's 3 years that she paid excess National Insurance. 2 years she got back $1,500.
Wow.
All right. So when you hear them talk about, and that's another issue. When we talk about appointments, we're talking about the minister come and say, we make sure about appointments. He addressed the wrong problem, because the Nursing Association didn't put that forward. So when he discussed it with them, they didn't know what they were talking about. So they gave him the wrong information. We were talking about people who have to get their reimbursement from National Insurance, and National Insurance is only allowed to give you back for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you got 3 years and 4 years that you can't get back because the government, your appointment letter is sitting on somebody's desk or some filing cabinet, right? Okay, nurses are paid increments for qualifications. So if you get a second qualification in the nursing field, of course, you will get another increment. People are waiting now 4 or 5 years to get their increment. You go complain about that because increment is a little bit more on your salary. Mind you, we are also asking for a regrading of the nurses, because a nurse is the lowest paid person in the public service who is required to get a degree to do their job. They go through a 4-year degree in nursing.
Mm-hmm.
And they start at the same level as the senior clerk. The two jobs are chalk and cheese.
Right. Wow.
But you are paying them after studying for 4 years. A senior clerk only got 4 CXCs. But they have to have 5 CXCs to get into the nursing program.
And then study for 4 years.
Then study for 4 years, and you can pay them at the rate of a person who get 4 CXC and sat down for a while as a clerical officer, eventually they become a senior clerk. And you pay them at the same rate as a nurse. Mind you, the lawyers who start in the public service, they start way up in the salary scale, about $2,000 more than a nurse. And the lawyers do a 3-year degree, and then they do 2 years at law school.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But so what is wrong with me asking for things like that? It is unfair to nurses.
Wow, this is something else. I mean, because I'm listening to you, sir, and you're saying that the nurses have to buy the washcloth in some instances to bathe the patients. They have to buy their own masks because they're only given 5 or 6 masks per week. when you know, they're working in an environment where they would definitely need much more than that. They have to buy their own sanitizer. In some cases, they have to buy Clorox bleach to clean to sanitize the floors, and they're buying all these different things, and yet still they're underpaid. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yes. Let me go on. Nurses do a 4-year program at the community college that will equip them to be nurses in Barbados. Government came up with this idea that you should be qualified to work in all the Caribbean countries. So they came up with this thing called a regional exam.
Yes.
Right? This exam will qualify you to work in St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Dominica. But in Barbados, there was no syllabus for the exam. So nurses had to go, and you hear people saying, "Oh, the nurses won't pass the exam. You know, they don't pass the regional. They can't pass it because nobody was teaching it." Okay. And the reason for that is that there was some mix-up between the community college and the nursing association and some other body. And the community college was not, they didn't communicate to the community college that this should be part of what you teach. So they never taught it. They only start doing anything about it within the last year and a half or so after I got up in the Senate and made noise about it. Then they rush and find some syllabus. But for people all those years, and you don't need it because you are fully equipped to work in Barbados. If you don't want to work in St. Lucia, why are you going to force me to qualify to work in St. Lucia? But those nurses who don't get that regional exam end up doing nails at some clinic or working at old people's home, watching old people sleep at night and that kind of thing. Or doing hair or something. Or if you're a nursing assistant, you can't qualify as a registered nurse, so you go back as a nursing assistant, being equipped and is just as trained as the person who's supervising you. So people complain about that thing, and they had promised us 2 years ago in our meetings that they will do something about these, they will call them graduate nurses. Today, the government has not put it in place. I found out that it was put in place, sorry, but it was not implemented by officials in the ministry. Not mind you, I'm not blaming the government, like the minister for this now. There are people in the ministry because some of the same people at BNA, the Barbados Nurses Association, the people correct these exams, so they get extra money. So they fought against getting rid of this exam. I sat at the meeting, one of the meetings that the PISA was at, that he not claiming he wasn't there. And the then president of the Barbados Nurses Association agreed with almost everything I said, but she refused to concede that this exam should go. And she gave all kind of history, and that's all I know so much about it now because she gave the history of it.
Yes.
And then watch. We have nurses in Barbados who are born and raised in Barbados that cannot work because they have not passed this regional, but nobody from Cuba passed our regional, nobody from Ghana passed our regional, because the Prime Minister signed an order allowing them to work without having that. Why she could not sign that order for Belgian nurses?
Right, because that's the question I was asking, if that would have led to, us not having enough nurses here, why they had to bring in nurses from Ghana and from Cuba because of that exam. Do you think that would have contributed to the decrease in the nurses?
It has, but they bring those people in and they did not certify that they were qualified to work in Barbados. The Prime Minister signed an order. They're qualified by law, not learning, not examination in Barbados. And they can work, but Belgians cannot work because the Prime Minister make the order for them. You think nurses are going to complain about?
Wow. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
Nurses now are required to have training every year to be able to be registered. But they got to pay for the courses that they do. The government isn't providing them. In order to continue to work as a nurse, you have to do training.
Yes.
And get credits. But you got to get those credits on your own, and they're not assisting you in getting them. But the nursing association will put on a few little courses that get accredited so they can make some money off of it. But that's what's happening in this place. There's too much dishonesty, too much corruption, too many lies.
So, Mr. Franklyn, Senator Franklyn, how long have you been representing the nurses?
I started with nurses about 3 years ago.
Yes.
Attending meetings with the Director General. And lucky for me, I tell people all the time, and like sound a little bit of vanity when I say it, but I said I do not like to perform without an audience. So I always take along nurses with me.
Mm-hmm.
And lucky for me, because they cannot testify that these issues were raised by me at these meetings, and we discussed them. Mm-hmm. Mind you, the person forgot, but he's getting old. So I suspect it might be senility. You know, so every time, and I can give another example of meetings, why I like to go to meetings. I would like to take nurses to meetings. When we informed them that we will take industrial action if they implement these safe zones, I wrote to the Director General, and she set off and I copied it to the Ministry of Health, but she wrote to the Minister of Health or the Ministry of Health, whoever, and they asked me to come to a meeting within an hour and a half of that letter going off. That's the fastest time that woman ever did anything in her life. Mm-hmm. And within an hour, I was on the phone to Minister Walker, who was then Actor of Health. He said at that meeting when we started, because I took a couple of nurses with me, he said he isn't concerned about these conditions, the other conditions that nurses are on. He just wants them to safe zones. I said, no, you got to talk about these. So we still raised them. When Minister Bostic came back from vacation, I called him. He called, I called him. And I asked him what is happening. So he proposed a meeting, and he attended that meeting. He said to us at that meeting, he didn't come here to resolve the strike. He come to find out the issues. And I said, well, all the issues are here in the Ministry of Health already, but to accommodate you, I think we can go over them again. And we listed those issues. Mm-hmm. Minister wrote them down as we speak. We discussed them, and then at the end, he said he has to go back and report back to Cabinet. Because it was a Thursday, he left Cabinet to come to the meeting so he can report back what we were asking and what we were saying. He read back to us his notes and asked us if this was what we were saying, if we could confirm that, because he don't want to mislead or he don't want to report what we didn't say. Mm-hmm. And we said to him, yes, we agree that these are exactly what we were talking about. And then he left and go back to Cabinet. So when the Prime Minister at her press conference said that she doesn't know what the issues were and that kind of thing, she probably missed Cabinet. She would have to miss Cabinet because Minister Bostic went back to Cabinet and reported to them. But the Prime Minister is telling the country that they don't know.
Okay, because that's what we heard, and we were wondering, why would you be striking and you have not taking industrial action, and you have not shared with the government what your concerns were. And I think that there are lots of people, even on social media, Senator Franklyn is saying that you went about it the wrong way. You jumped the gun, and you didn't follow the proper procedure.
That is the Prime Minister's narrative that she wants people to believe, because she has the bully pulpit, she can make enough noise. Because when I attempted to put my side, we held a press conference last Saturday. Mm-hmm. They listened to the press conference, and they wanted to make sure that we didn't get the kind of airplay or the front pages of the newspaper. They held another press conference the evening and announced a VAT-free Monday. So we got knocked off the news. And I can tell you something about that VAT-free Monday, how it is so dishonest and disingenuous. First of all, up to this day, there's no order published in the official gazette that would allow them to do that. It was illegal to do what they did on Monday, but they did it. And people in Barbados think, oh, they got a deal. People went to the supermarkets. Groceries in Barbados are zero rated. So they went and got a VAT-free day for things that were already VAT-free. But they weren't looking, and they weren't noticing it because the Prime Minister come out and said so. She tricked them. But all this was an attempt to take my position out of the news, because what they said about us were mostly lies. So they don't want the lies to be cleared up. just like on Sunday, the director of finance, Mr. Ian Carrington, came on radio, on TV and everything else and said that I was talking rubbish. Utter, but he didn't say rubbish, he said wobbish. Okay. I was talking utter rubbish because no person can go into somebody's account and take out their money.
Mm-hmm.
He said it's a criminal act,
Mm-hmm.
and he denied it.
Yes.
What he didn't know, I was setting him up because I knew that somebody would have come out and said it was a lie. So we kept back that voice note, and we kept back screenshots of the people's accounts to show that the government did it. But we didn't even have to use these screenshots because that voice note between the nurse and the customer service agent tell it all. It said the government gave instructions to seize your pay. Let me explain that to you. Let's say I gave you a check.
Right.
And I called the bank before you get there and I said, I want to put a hold on this thing. I used to come and send the necessary documents. The bank wouldn't cash the check because there's a hole on it. Well, the government now, you get paid on a particular day.
Yes.
But the banks get the money way in advance. So the banks don't have any authority to give you that money before payday.
Mm-hmm.
Payday was the 17th. So that money hit your account on the 17th. And on the 17th, government gave directives to not only take out the money that there's you strike, but to take out all. So people now did not get a single cent for December because the Prime Minister and her cabinet or whoever did it determined that nurses must suffer for Christmas.
Right.
So rather, and punish them. So rather than say, but okay, they're off for 9 days, so we can take out 9 days, they took out 31 days.
Wow. So I was of the impression that it was just the time of the strike. So you're saying to us, Senator Franklyn, that they have taken out the entire month?
They took the entire month's salary. They want to make sure the nurses suffer. You don't really dealing with demons. You don't really be dealing with demons. Christmas time, everybody want to be able to give their children a little something for Christmas, buy something for their friends, get a little gift that loved one up and so on. And the government made sure they couldn't do it by seizing all of their money. And what they did, they told the bank that the hold will be up till the 31st of December. So they make sure you don't have the money in December at all.
Wow.
And they don't have, and according to the director of finance, that's a criminal act. But the government did it. Because you can't go into my account and take my money. And that's what the government did. And the banks must be criticized for it because the banks should have said, no, but you can't do that. But the banks, everybody in Barbados is friends with this government. So banks will comply with a directive that is an illegal directive to take up people's money because the government wants to punish them for standing up for their rights.
I'm speechless. I'm really speechless. At the start of this this discussion, I said, this is not a show. We have about 158 nurses, Mr. Franklyn? How many of these nurses are affected?
Well, I don't know how many are affected because they didn't take from all of them. They took from some. I don't know what criteria they use to decide who they're going to punish. When I spoke to you, mm-hmm. I had 158 nurses in Unity. How I know this? Because every time we sign up a nurse, we have a nurse in chat. So we add their name to the chat. So all I have to do is to go in the chat and see how many nurses we have. Mm-hmm. Right? And they'll tell you that since they did these things to us, the numbers have gone up slightly because nurses have come to me and said, one nurse called me, she said, Mr. Franklyn, I don't belong to any union. I never belonged to a union. And I wasn't on strike or anything. But this is Friday last week, because this article got seized Monday, Thursday. She said, but I drew back to work on Monday.
Mhm.
And I want to join your union because they take up my colleague's salary, let it take up mine too.
Mhm.
That is how incensed some nurses are feeling. This morning I got people coming here to this office, and a woman came and dropped off an envelope. She didn't even tell me what she needed. She just put the envelope and gone. She had on nursing scrubs. Well, she's not a striker,
Wow.
but she was dressed and thing, or she might have been private sector. I don't know. I had $200 in it, and she apologized for not putting more.
So you're here on Zoom with us. I'm seeing a Cassian Holder. I'm going to ask you to speak to the nurses, send something to them directly in the chat to open their camera and their microphones, those who want to speak. And, you know, those who, I'm sure there are some of them too that I'm hearing want to speak, but they're so afraid. And this is what is happening, Senator Franklyn. And this is Barbados. I don't understand why they would be afraid. What are they afraid of? Why wouldn't they want to speak?
They're afraid to lose their jobs. You see, Catherine Holder spoke to you because she is a delegate from this union, and she was acting on behalf of the delegate of the union when she spoke on the press conference. Because she then would be protected by the Trade Union Act, who says that if you dismiss or adversely affect her employment, that's a criminal offense, and the person doing it could go to jail for 6 months or $1,000 or both. So she's protected by law. But the other nurses who are not delegates of the union, they are not allowed to speak out on these issues because they can find themselves out of work. So that's why the rules that we have in place are very archaic, but people love them because I don't see why a person shouldn't be able to speak out about the conditions under which he's working. You know, he's not giving away national secrets, you know, and then something like this should not be kept secret.
Oh wow! But you know what we could do? These you can let me know if that's okay. We are here on Zoom, and if they could, I wouldn't call out their names, but what I want them to know is to confirm what you're saying, because the narrative out there, we want the truth to go out. Right? Yes. What we want is the truth. We want the truth to go out, Senator Franklyn. And I think people really genuinely want to hear from the nurses themselves. Miss Catherine.
Before you do that, then, and some person was just trying to speak to me. I recognize that person's voice. She is the person one of the persons who accompanied me to the meetings with the acting Minister of Health. There was the acting Minister of Health, Attorney General, Dr. Anton Best, and the Chief Medical Officer, and some other high-ranking people in the Ministry of Health. We sat at that meeting and we put forward our proposals. And I said, and I was talking about the terrible conditions of the furniture that I have. I said, and I see her, she was sitting at her desk and the chair just gave way, and she was badly hurt by that chair, and she had to put the government in court because the government refused to accept liability for her injuries, even though she was not playing the foot, she was just sitting there normally in the chair. And the case is going on for a very long time, and it can't get a court date, it can't get anything going on, and the government isn't settling. You know, the Attorney General turned to her and said, "Because you don't want the nurses to strike, you tell her, look, if you help me, I would help you." And she said, "Mr. Attorney General, I can't sell out my nurses."
Well, could you repeat that? Could you repeat that, sir? Because that I don't understand what you're saying.
He was in the meeting. We were complaining about her actually falling to her chair and not getting any conversation. The government wouldn't do anything about it. They wouldn't accept liability. You gotta go to court because of their negligence. And he doesn't want her to strike. She doesn't want the nurses to strike. And she's one of the leaders. And he said to her, "If you help me, I would help you." And she shouted at him. She said, "Mr. Attorney General, I will not sell out my nurses."
what is going to happen from here?
The minister knows nothing about industrial relations. All he knows is what people tell him. What they are doing is adopting a procedure that was established by the Barbados Workers Union when they were in the process of selling out the workers. Because if you have workers out on strike and you get them to go back to work and the negotiations break down, it's going to be difficult to get them back out. So they were sold out. And they take that sold out position and try to make it a practice. But I have never practiced it and I will never practice it because I have been trained. I used to be a member of staff at NUPW. I still have a soft spot for them. They sent me to train at the George Meany Center for Labor Studies, as it was then. They sent me to train at the International Labor Organization, International Center in Turin, Italy. I've had training at the Labor College, also through the ILO, and I've trained at the Barbados and the CM Public Workers Academy at UPW. And no time in this place have we seen that nowhere in the world we practice this going back to work first before we talk. That is a sellout position. When the BW wanted to sell out to Owen Arthur, that is the position they adopted so as to get the workers back to work, because when the workers get back to work, they're not going back, they're not coming back out. That is a position that Barbados Workers Union want to choose to work for themselves. I am not a member of the Barbados Workers Union. I used to be. I am not affiliated in their Congress or anything. So if they want to set standards for, they want to set poor standards for themselves, they can do that. But they're not going to do them for me. If the minister wants to speak to us, we are ready, willing, and able. He will set no preconditions. That is not part of our law. That's not part of our practice. That is a sellout position that the Barbados Workers Union adopted so as to deceive the workers. And somehow people believe that that is industrial relations, that's what it's done. But let me tell you something. Industrial relations don't work when everybody's happy and soft and everything. When you have an advantage, you use it. That is why you have, like for instance, just before the crop starts, there will be a strike because they want the crop to start out. Transport board, the day before CXC exam starts, people want to get an exam. You want to do a strike because you're going to use your advantage.
Right.
When big ships are in the harbor, they call a strike. When you say ever see somebody transport board call a strike at night. You know, you do it when it is going to be effective. So all of a sudden, these experts like Mia Motley think that she knows something. She knows nothing about anything at all. She's not qualified in anything. But she wanted to tell me, who've been trained in this area, how to be an industrial relations person. She can't tell me that. She can be a bully and bully people, but she will never bully me. When she can't bully you, she won't destroy you. As I told you already, since she became prime minister, she offered me 3 jobs. Right now, I will be the most senior person in the public service. I've taken it first. And you can ask any member of the House and of the Senate, but that's Tony Moore, she was not there. She was absent that day. Every other member was present. Commissioner of Police, Chief of Staff of the Defense Force, Permanent Secretary of Defense, all of them were there. When she offered me my first bribe, I would have been the most senior person in the public service. Every permanent secretary, I would have been senior to. And she said to me, Caswell, you'll be the best man for that job. And I said, Prime Minister, while I agreed that I'd be the best man for that job, if I took it, they wouldn't got any good trade units left, you would got all. And I refused that job. I can't afford to refuse jobs with that kind of salary, but I did. And she came back some other time with another job. And then the final thing she did in September last year, when Parliament opened for the second time in this session, she approached me and asked me to run. And I turned it down then too. So now since she can't buy me like she buy Alice and other people, she wants to destroy me and coming up with things that she knows to be untrue. Like for instance, I'll give you an example. She wants to make me look bad. I had a Zoom meeting. I announced a Zoom meeting for my people. And I tell them, invite other nurses to this meeting. so that they will hear what we are saying, because the meetings were only supposed to be for my members, but I said over like that. When the Barbados Nurses Association heard that we were having a meeting, they scheduled one to start before us. And so they were the polar members from us. And we had in our meeting 312. They had 98. And that's what panicked the government. That is what panicked, because the government now has to protect the unions that salute to them, you know. So that's what they want to destroy us, because we have more credibility than all of them put together. So that's what this madness start. They want, and that's what they want to negotiate with the DNA. Not so she wants to destroy me personally, because I will not be bought. I am not for sale. Somebody asked me what my price is. Everybody got a price. I said, yes, I have a price. It's salvation, and she can't offer it. You know, if she could offer me salvation, I would take the bribe, but she can't offer salvation. And that's what, so this is hatred or megalomania on her part, that she thinks that she must rule everybody with iron fist. She got cabinet members that she has, as Trevor Prescott said, they have no balls. He said that about his colleagues, because the way she treats them, and they suck up and take it. I don't suck up and take it. And as long as they have anything to do with these nurses, they will not suck up and take it either. But let me tell you what I'm saying. So in that group of 312, one nurse came on and said, she was crying. And she said that sister called her and said that she's abandoned her patients, and that hurt her. I said to her, listen to me, they're not your patients. When you go to work and you take over the ward, they're your patients. When you're at home, they're not your patients. You're not abandoning anybody. Okay? And you have to stop being shocked. You have to have a distance between the nurses. You have to have this professional distance. I asked them, because if you have a ward with 20, 40 people in it, and you so partial to one, and you love that person is sick and dying, you then onto that person now, or the person dies, you there crying, the other 39 people can suffer, you know. So then I was asking them, I said, look, you can't do that. And it says the government people can't say which one had it. They bug our Zoom meeting, they bug it. So they heard everything I said. Yeah, they know they like tapping phones and stuff, and I better tap my Zoom too. And they were listening. So they heard everything that I said, but they took out certain parts and put them together to make it sound like I'm a monster. You know, when I done said that, a nurse said, but that's the same thing they tell us in nursing school. You know, but that's what they teach them. But I never went to nursing school. I didn't know that is what they taught them. But that is what I believe to be sensible, that you cannot go and make yourself too close to the patient. Let me tell you something. Even though I counsel people and I tell them these things, I have to get somebody to talk to me too, because I find myself getting involved with these nurses at the level where I say, like I'm hurt by it. As a professional, I shouldn't be. But I can't help it. When they hear their stories.
Yeah, is it going to be too much?
Well, today I have a very small fridge in my office, and right now it's full with chicken, because the company sent a whole set of chicken for me. So I will take whatever I get. I don't like chicken myself, but they might, so we'll take it.
Yes. So you would accept kind as well?
I'll accept kind, I'll accept copper, I'll accept anything as long as the nurses can use it.
Yes, yes.
I'll accept love from the Prime Minister, so she can undo the damage that she's done to these people with her vindictiveness. Because she must know that she is wrong. But you know, former Prime Minister said she was a despot, and she's showing it. You know, I am hurt by her behavior to all these nurses. You know, she had this poster, this T-shirt that said, Mayor cares. Mayor cares about who or what? It's certainly in nurses in Barbados. This is spoiled brat behavior. You know, like when you're a little child and you grow up privileged and you're in the house and mommy says, no, you can't do it. You stamp your feet and throw a tantrum. And mommy says, come sweetheart, let me give you a kiss. And you get away with what you do. This is the type of behavior that she is exhibiting now. She's just a grown spoiled brat now. And treat it, and look, these people have children. I know when I hear them, many Zoom come on and their homes, and they can hear the little children in the back saying, and some of them even come and speak to us at night on the phone. And so they're gonna touch you when you know that you're punishing those little sweet little darlings. But you don't care because you got to win.
Franklyn, I want to give you the last word, sir.
Thank you very much. And I really appreciate you having me on your show so the other side can be put. Because I will tell you that all these issues that we have said to you, I have said to the local media. But when they bring out their sanitized news, they leave out the more telling parts. When I asked the reporters, but I told you so and so, she said, but you know, I put it in the story, but it never come out because the media is afraid of the government. And you know, government does a lot of advertising in the newspapers. So if you don't conform, so Barbados does not get the news. They get some sort of sanitized version of it. And it's usually one that makes the government look as good as it can. So I really appreciate your allowing us to put the other side, the facts. I dare anyone in the government to say that anything that we have said here today is untrue. I don't associate myself with telling lies. I wouldn't do it, not for the sake of it. And oh, by the way, somebody said in the chat that they will vote for me if I run as an independent. Sir, you're not in danger of having me as a representative. I'm not interested. Thank you very much, ma'am.